The United States and Israel are preparing to bomb Iran's power plants and refineries, and multiple sources say the strikes could begin this weekend. There was even a discussion inside the planning about trying to be finished before the financial markets open Monday because of what this is expected to do to the price of oil. The president has not given the final order, and that is not the only thing that moved tonight. Fact This News, Saturday, August 1st. I'm Brittany, and this is the full episode for Saturday, August 1st. Tonight, what it actually means to bomb a country's electricity and why Monday morning is written into the plan. The Justice Department goes to the Supreme Court over who gets to vote by mail. A federal safety deadline for driverless cars came and went, and not one company in the industry answered it. There is a refrigerator sitting in a lot of American kitchens that you are going to want to unplug when this is over. And later, a movie did something last night that no movie has ever done. Start with the war. Multiple sources tell CBS News that the United States and Israel are planning what would be one of the harshest bombing campaigns of this conflict so far, aimed at Iran's energy infrastructure. Power plants, refineries. Strikes possible across the weekend. The plan came up at President Trump's cabinet meeting at Camp David on Friday. The Israelis have been notified and are coordinating. The president has not given the final go order. Two details stand out. First, there was discussion of trying to conclude the campaign by the time financial markets open Monday because of concern about what the bombing does to the American and the global economy. No endpoint was locked in. Second, there were high-level discussions Friday about cutting electricity across Tehran. No decision had been made as of Friday afternoon. With reporters in the room, the president said, quote, "We'll be hitting them very hard. At some point they're going to say, we just can't take it anymore." Asked about reviving diplomacy, he said, "I think we just want to win." Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said Iran will not have a nuclear weapon under his watch. The Pentagon's chief spokesman, Sean Parnell, said the department is, quote, "locked and loaded." Some White House aides who focus on politics were strongly opposed. A joint operation would also mark Israel's return to combat operations, which it had halted during the American-brokered truce. Now, the other story on the map tonight. Spain's North African enclave of Ceuta. Spain's Interior Ministry says roughly 50,000 people crossed the border from Morocco in a single day, and about 37,500 have already turned around and gone back. The head of Ceuta's local government, Juan Jesus Vivas, puts the number as high as 60,000 over 2 days. At least 18 people died trying to make it. Spain has deployed military units to reinforce the police, and Spanish state broadcaster RTVE has aired images of burned cars on the Moroccan side. Our take, and we will be careful here. Hitting an energy grid is not the same as hitting a military base. Power plants and refineries are how a government keeps the lights on in hospitals, keeps water pumping, and keeps ordinary life running. That is precisely why they get targeted, and it is precisely why the humanitarian cost lands on civilians rather than on the people making the decisions. Hold both facts at once. And the line about finishing before Monday's open tells you something honest about how this is being weighed. The market reaction is part of the calculation, in writing. From a war being planned overseas to a fight over the machinery of voting here at home. Different scale, same question about who decides. The Justice Department has asked the Supreme Court, on an emergency basis, to let President Trump's mail voting executive order take effect before the midterm elections. The order, signed March 31st, directs federal agencies to build lists of voters eligible to receive mail ballots and restricts how the Postal Service handles mail voting. 23 Democratic-led states challenged it. They argued the Constitution leaves the running of elections largely to the states, not to the White House. They won at the district court, and a 3-judge panel of the First Circuit upheld the block 2-1. That panel wrote that the order directs, quote, unprecedented levels of involvement by federal officials in how states administer elections, and warned of confusion and the disenfranchisement of many eligible voters. A Trump appointee on the panel dissented. The Supreme Court has asked the states for a response by Monday, August 3rd. That is the law to watch this week. Separately, on Capitol Hill, Senator Rand Paul has released more than 1,000 pages of Dr. Anthony Fauci's pandemic-era diaries, covering December 2019 through December 2022. The entries show that on January 31st, 2020, top virologists told Fauci that the virus's furin cleavage site raised real doubts about a natural origin, and that roughly half the scientists on that first call thought it looked constructed. Other entries record his private frustration over gain-of-function funding questions tied to EcoHealth Alliance and the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And more human than historic, he complained privately about the president's rambling and enjoyed the coverage of himself. Our take. On the voting order, notice what the First Circuit actually objected to. Not fraud, not security, but the federal government reaching into a job the Constitution hands to the states. That is a structural argument, and it is the one the Supreme Court will have to answer fast, with a Monday deadline and a midterm on the calendar. On the diaries, a private note that says half the scientists on a January 2020 call thought the virus looked constructed is genuinely significant. And it is also not the same thing as proof of where the virus came from. It is evidence of what officials were told and when. Those are different claims, and anyone selling you the stronger one is selling. Drew, I want to hand you something with a deadline in it, because a federal one just expired, and I gather the silence is the story.
It is, Brittany, and it is a loud silence. Nobody said a word. Here is the setup. Earlier this month, the head of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Jonathan Morrison, told every autonomous vehicle developer in the country to submit remediation plans by the end of July. The problem? Robo-taxis driving into active emergency scenes, entering cordoned areas, parking on top of charged fire hoses, ignoring flares, cones, and smoke, blocking ambulances and fire apparatus. The agency's framing matters. It called this a functional insufficiency, not a rare edge case. In other words, not a fluke, a gap in the software. The trigger was partly a 4th of July incident in which multiple Waymo vehicles were stranded in a congested area of San Francisco near the Presidio and had to be cleared with help. That deadline has now come and gone, and no operator in the industry has publicly presented a solution. Now put that next to what else happened this week. Amazon's Zoox won the first federal exemption ever granted for a purpose-built robotaxi, up to 2,500 vehicles a year, with no steering wheel, no pedals, no mirrors, and permission to start charging riders. Scale for context. Waymo is running roughly 500,000 paid rides a week with about 3,000 vehicles across 11 metro areas. And on the Tesla side, the company launched unsupervised robo-taxi service in Miami without chase cars, while TechCrunch reports its paid robo-taxi miles were flat quarter over quarter and a planned 7-city expansion landed in 3. Our take. The regulator did an unusual and, I think, smart thing here. It did not open 12 separate investigations. It named one specific failure that every operator shares, gave the whole industry a month, and put the burden on them. Then the month ended and nobody answered. That is the part worth remembering. This is a young industry that has been extremely good at publishing ride counts and extremely quiet about the times its cars sat in front of a fire truck. Both things can be true. Robo-taxis are, on the aggregate numbers, doing well on ordinary safety, and they are demonstrably bad at the unusual moment when the road belongs to somebody with a siren. The second one is fixable. It is not fixable in a press release. Brittany, staying on things that catch fire when they are not supposed to, you have got the one people actually need to act on tonight.
I do, and this one is in the kitchen, which is why I want people listening rather than scrolling. Recall of the day. Galans Americas is recalling about 121,680 Galans retro refrigerators in coordination with the Consumer Product Safety Commission. These are the retro-styled units, roughly 58 inches high and 21 inches wide, sold in black, blue, red, and white, with a separate top freezer door. The model numbers are BCD 215V62H and the GLR 76 series. GLR 76, TRDER, TBKER, TBEER, and TWEE. Date codes December 2018 through December 2020. They sold at Home Depot stores nationwide and on Amazon.com from January 2019 through September 2022. The hazard: internal electrical components can short circuit and ignite. The Commission is aware of 34 reports of fires, and one of those incidents resulted in a death, according to a local fire department report. What to do? Unplug it and stop using it now. Galans is offering a free in-home repair by a technician, and the number is 888-462-0579. The date code is on a white label on the upper left corner on the back. One more from the same roundup, and it is seasonal. Jake's Fireworks is recalling about 132,440 world-class fireworks skull strobe rockets, SKU 1004351, because they can explode before reaching a safe height. Sold from March 2025 through June of this year, $12 to $25. Stop using them and take them back for a full refund. Our take: 34 fires and a fatality on a product that has been in kitchens since 2019 tells you how long these things sit in a home after the risk is known. Recall notices are famously bad at reaching people because nobody registers a refrigerator. So do the unglamorous thing. If yours is a retro-style Galans, walk over and read the label on the back before you go to bed. Drew, the heat is not letting go, and I know you have been watching the overnight numbers.
The overnights are the whole story, Brittany, straight to it. The heat dome that spent last week over the middle of the country has shifted west and strengthened over the desert southwest, and this weekend is the peak. Forecasters have highs topping 115 degrees across the region. For scale on how relentless this summer has been, Phoenix logged 12 days at or above 110 degrees in the month of July alone. The searing heat is expected to hold through at least the first week of August, and long-standing daily records are in play. The part that does the damage is not the afternoon number, it is the overnight low. When the temperature only falls to the mid-80s or near 90, the body never gets its recovery window, and that is what turns a hot week into an emergency room week, especially for older adults and for anyone without working air conditioning. Two things to watch next. A push of monsoon moisture is expected by the middle of the week, which raises humidity and storm chances. And in the Gulf of Mexico, the National Hurricane Center is watching an area that could gradually organize into a tropical or subtropical depression or storm sometime next week. Our take, and we will keep it plain, because heat is the deadliest weather there is in this country, and it never looks dramatic on camera. There is no wreckage to point at. Check on the neighbor who is 81 and proud. Check on the one whose air conditioning has been making that noise. That is the whole take. Lana, I am handing you a record, and for once tonight, it is a record nobody has to be worried about.
I will take it, Drew. It is a big one, and it happened in about 18 hours. Spider-Man, brand new, David Gars Day has posted the biggest opening day in movie history. Start with the previews. Sony's film took $72 million from preview screenings, which included Prime Video early access shows on Wednesday night and showtime starting at noon on Thursday. That beat the previous all-time preview record of $60 million, held by Avengers Endgame. Then Friday, Deadline projects $167 to $173 million for Friday alone, which passes Endgame's opening day record of $157.4 million. Showbiz 411 puts the Thursday plus Friday combined figure around $170 million. Forbes now points to an opening weekend of $330 million or more. For context, this is Tom Holland's fourth solo Spider-Man film, with a net production budget reported at $225 million. Our take: two things are happening at once here, and it is worth separating them. 1. The theatrical business is not dead. It is concentrated. A very small number of titles a year now do the volume that a dozen used to. 2. The preview record is the tell. $72 million before the official opening day means the studio moved the start line earlier, with a streaming early access window bolted on. The record is real. The definition of opening day is also quietly being renegotiated in front of us. To sports. And the clock everyone in baseball is watching. The trade deadline is Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. The biggest name available is Detroit's Tarik Skubal. He is 29. A left-hander, he won the American League Cy Young in both 2024 and 2025. And he is a free agent this offseason. ESPN's Jeff Passan reported this week that the Tigers have decided to move him, and a deal could come quickly. Detroit then scratched Casey Mize from Friday's start, which is the kind of housekeeping teams do when pieces are about to be shuffled. The Tigers are the wild card of this deadline, because trading a back-to-back Cy Young winner is a painful way to admit the playoff math has stopped working. Elsewhere, NFL training camps are open across the league, and the WNBA is running its own deadline week. Brittany, back to you for the number, and I have a feeling it connects to where we started.
It does, Lana. It closes the loop exactly. The number of the day is $4.09. That is the AAA national average for a gallon of regular gasoline in its most recent report, and it is nearly $1 higher than it was at this time last year. Underneath it, Brent crude finished Friday around $87.84 a barrel, up about 1% on the day and up roughly 23% over the past month. State averages spread wide, from the low threes in parts of the Gulf South to $5.64 in California, $5.46 in Hawaii, and $5.11 in Washington. And the reason sits back at the top of this episode. Somewhere around a fifth of the world's oil moves through the Strait of Hormuz, normally on the order of 20 million barrels a day, and traffic through that waterway has collapsed from roughly 130 ships a day before the war to a handful now. Our take. This is what people mean when they say a war has a domestic price, and it is why that line about finishing before Monday's market open is not cynical, it is arithmetic. Every additional week of disruption at Hormuz shows up on a sign at eye level on your drive to work several weeks later. You do not have to have an opinion about the strikes to notice that the bill arrives either way. That's Fact This News for Saturday, August 1st. This episode is brought to you by ResuFresh. That's resufresh.com for all your career and AI mock interview needs. Use promo code TRIME today to get started. Thanks for spending part of your day with us. We'll see you tomorrow.